Hi. Well, the latest update, or the next update of DeepFX Studio is finally here, actually. Like I promised, there'll be more updates. You won't have to wait longer periods to get these updates. So once I've actually implemented stuff and polished the features, and they're ready to use, I will push them out. I'll try my best to push them out. So in this update, the focus is mainly on instancing tools or point cloud shapers specifically, since the two are related. You can use them for other other purposes, of course, but instancing would be the main one, I guess, at the moment. Instancing was in the last version, to just there were no tools to actually use it with. So that's the biggest one, and then there's bug fixes in the background, and Lux Core gets shadow catcher for that, and I'll just walk through that. Oh, and in this version, technically version 0.5 was supposed to be version 1.0. I was just sticking with versioning, but it confused a lot of people because 0.1 isn't 0.5 wasn't a beta, it was outside beta. It was actually a full product. So what I've decided to do is change the versioning, actually, due to some feedback from people. And the next version is actually version 1.2. Since 0.5 was meant to be, technically, is a full version was 0. Which was version 0.10 version, yeah, version 1.0. Sorry about that. Okay, so we'll be moving forward in this new versioning. So the next major release will be following the traditional be version 2.0. So whenever that comes out, that'll be a new release. That's when you need to get new updates. So for now, it will continue as is. So this will be the version 1 series of updates going through. And updates won't technically will continue going, so it might be version 1.22, version 1.33 until the time is justified for it to go to version 2. To the next version, for example, major version. So you shouldn't worry that there's only like 2 more updates left, so it's undetermined. Okay, so at some point I'll decide it's time for version 2, and I'll let you know, and we'll move on. So I wouldn't follow the versioning too much on the on the point basis, there on the minor. It might just confuse you, but yes. So DeepFX Studio is ready. You can use it. It's not in beta anymore. It's a full product. It's functioning, all that, of course. So I will let me just go through the new features quickly. So the instancing is the biggest feature, and that was there, but now you can actually use it. It wasn't enabled properly before, and this is possible through mainly the shape node. And this allows you to attach shapes to the point clouds. It's an attribute, and other attributes, of course, that will allow you to instance into the scene. The point instancer was already there, so it just wasn't enabled, or you couldn't. It wasn't showing anything because there were no tools or no attributes that it could show. So let me just render this scene, which is a pretty big scene, but as you will see, it renders, it goes, I don't know, pretty fast in my opinion. So there's over 450,000 objects in this, okay, of grass. There's only a few tree models. Oh, okay, that's a bad view. 1 second, let me do that. Okay, since I'm using Poisson sampling here, everything is random. Let me just disable the trees. Oh, let me just sample again. Or actually, I can just do this. I will just drop the amount of trees in the scene to about half. Okay, so you can see what's happening here. And I'll re-render the frame. So there's, I think, nearly half to a billion polygons in this. So as you can see, the boot up has improved drastically since the development diary. So that's which I think is fantastic. So it only takes a few seconds now to start up, even on a billion polygons, and you get your scene. Maybe I should just switch off the trees. They're not going where I want them to be. Let's try this one more time. 1 second. I should have used a different type of sampling for this, actually, but it looked good the first time around. Where was I? Let me do sample again. For this time, it would be in a good place. Unless the radius is too big. Okay, much better, much better. Of course, yeah, there's the other samplings are not random, just that Poisson sampling, since it's just the nature of it, it will give different results each time. So there'll be a way to bake out your point cloud in the future, so you can have you can shape them perfectly and save them out. You don't have to worry about this. But the others are deterministic, so you'll get the same result each time. And you can randomize them by just changing the random seed if you have to. So yes, there's nearly, I think, over 500 million to 1 billion polygons in the scene. Loads pretty fast, everything moves pretty fast, and memory is very low. I think it's only about 3 gigabytes. Yeah, 3 gigabytes for the models. The tree models are pretty heavy. There's 4 types of grass here, I believe. Actually, more than 4. Quite a few varieties of grass in there. Only 1 tree model though, and yeah, so you see this. It's pretty responsive as well. I'll just stop there quickly. You can see, of course, you can let this run. It's a bit blurry now, of course, but you'd want a bigger resolution, and you just let it collect more samples, and you will get it. And you can actually see the full version, the 4K or 8K version of this on my website. You can just look that up. So yes, so these are the tools. This is what the new tools will allow you to do pretty quickly. So this was it took a bit of time, but this is pretty easy to achieve. Okay, if you've seen the other development diaries, you can see closer how the attributes actually affected. So I won't go into that. I'll just look at the latest features, the proximity, the scale proximity, and I'll just show as well the, what do you call this, the shadow catcher. So shadow catcher, if you don't know what a shadow catcher is, so if you want to composite a 3D image into a photograph or HDR scene, you need it to interact with the scene. So the most important feature is probably a shadow. You need it to cast a shadow into the photograph. So that's what the shadow catcher is for. And it's implemented into every matte node. So all you have to do is check it, and it will become a shadow catcher. So if I disable this actually, and I'll just render, for this one take long, just start a render. Oh, I might have to scale down the HDR. It's using a pretty big HDR here, so which is good. This is using, I think, 16K resolution HDR. It's another demonstration that LuxCode can handle files that big. I think it's about 300 MB. I should scale it down for this demonstration. Probably will. Just give it a moment. Okay. Here we can actually see the plane in the background. Let me just zoom out a bit. So the shadow, as you can see, the plane is in the way, but with the image in the background. So what the shadow catcher would do is get rid of the plane, but keep the shadow there. That's the most important thing to remember about the shadow catcher. So this is pretty basic. I mean, straightforward to use. You just set the shadow catcher. And 1 second, let me just get a lower resolution. I think we are. I can just do 8K, so I've got quicker response there. Okay, just render that. Should be. Okay, so we got rid of the plane, but the shadow remains. So as you can see, the car is actually interacting with the scene. That's what the main use of the shadow catcher, and that's available now. It's in the matte node. Straightforward, just check it and you've got your shadow catcher. Okay, some of these scenes should be in the samples. Okay, they should make it into the samples so you can try them out yourself. Especially this scene, it might be modified. It might not be exactly this scene, but it should be there should be something in there. And then finally, I'll just show you the other shaper node. I think in the development diaries I showed the kill, which just deletes particles. You can actually kind of paint with that, but I'll keep improving this. I'll make painting directly in the screen as well eventually. I'll make a note for that. And this one is just the proximity scaling. So scaling is actually quite interesting. You can create some interesting effects. I'll set this up here. So this would be like a mini tutorial as well. So I've got 2 point clouds, one for the grass and one for the other objects I want to interact. Okay. So I'm just going to sample the plane. First I have to select the plane, of course. I'll apply the transformation. I'm using a triangle sampler, so this is there's no randomness there. So this is where our grass will go. 1 second, let me just hide our grass. Okay, so and then the point shape, this is the new what actually adds the attributes to the instance. This is the shapes. So if I put the shapes I want in grass, so you can have as many shapes in here. There will be, you can either use the uniform distribution or random distribution. It's up to you, depending on it. For poison, I think the samples are already randomized, so I don't think you have to worry about that. But if you want to randomize them again, you can set that up again. Of course, then you can change offset, scale it, etc. But I will leave it like this, so I can just demonstrate what the proximity, the scaling proximity is good for. Okay, so it's empty at the moment. Then I add an instance here, which you can actually switch between AAB for faster performance now. You can enable it, disable it. Okay. Then I will actually disable it just quickly so we can see the next point cloud, which would be the trees. I mean the animals, but I want less than that. Way less. Wait 1 second, let me hide that. What was that, 10? Oh, sorry, I need geometry again. I just get the UV plane. I will sample, we get 5. Okay, you can barely see them, but they're there. Like I'm using person sampling here, so every time I sample, I will get a different count. I'll just drop it to 9. Okay, get 6 so it's easier to see. And then for this one, I'm just gonna add an animal to the scene. So there's a rabbit in there and the animals. So again, you can just add as many shapes as you want into there, and you can either make it uniform or random. Okay, so and this so the group doesn't have to be a group; it can just be an item. Okay, so for the proximity here, for example. So I'm going to use a reference for this. The reference is going to be the second point cloud. Okay, let me just re-enable this. So you can't see anything here yet, but if I go into proximity, it's referencing all the objects in this, in the other point cloud, and it's finding all the neighbors from that point cloud in this point cloud. So if I start to increase the, sorry about that. The radius, for example, if I increase and decrease, it's going to scale the grass from the center of the object you have all the way out to to the furthest piece of grass. Of course, this is useful for where you don't want grass to be around the object, and you want it to be more realistic. So you might want the smaller grass in front and the bigger grass in the background. So this is good for that. And you can combine this with the kill, so you might not want any any grass around the rabbit at all. But as it starts to move out, you want smaller grass and you want bigger grass, for example. Just like in the real world, you can do that. And you can also make the inverse of this, which is kind of cool. I think if you just want grass around the rabbit, you can do that, for example. So you can scale out the radius, so that becomes the inverse, which I think is kind of cool as well. But we'll just stick with that, which creates patches of grass where the rabbits are. And of course, you can go into shape and start actually changing this. Maybe you don't want the grass to be that tall at all. We can drop it completely. Sorry. Main scale might start from there. Maybe too small. Something like that. Then we can obviously randomize the rotation as well. Play with that in real time. Okay, and then of course we can add some more in there, just to add some variation and stuff like that. Actually. Okay, and yeah, I know. The possibilities are endless, it's up to you. So it's just an example. And like I said, rendering is pretty fast even for 1 billion polygons right now, so you don't have to worry about that. Of course, the viewport will need to be optimized in the future, or you can use the bounding boxes, or you can limit the amount of objects you actually see in the viewport in the interim until I come up with a solution for that. Maybe you'll be able to see trillions of polygons in the viewport one day, which would be cool. And then once you're done, of course, you can just render stuff out. So you could pop this up. This should just render out. So what you see in the viewport is essentially what you get in the renderer. You can add the way you texture your normal objects is just the way you texture your instances. It will just be copied over to the instances. Maybe there'll be more control of that in the future. Maybe there'll be attributes depending on distance. It can affect some of the shading attributes. We'll see about that. And yeah, so once you add it, it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to do anything else, and it will just be picked up by the renderer as long as you've got an instance tool, the point attribute instancer, and there should be no problems. And that's about it. So thank you for watching. This is version 1.2. I'll keep posting updates. I hope you like what you see. Follow if you're new to the channel. Support us, or support me if you like these tools, stuff like that. There's a gallery on our website now. If you want to share some images, up to you. Yeah, okay.